Hey, can you hear me? Do I speak louder? Louder? How about now? How about now? Can you hear me? Well, it's got to be hard to hear me with all the noise in the background. And so you may not understand what I'm saying. So let me change my environment and maybe you'll hear me a little bit better. Hey, how about now? Can you hear me a little bit better? So we've been going out for a bike ride over the past couple of weeks. And every now and then I like to venture out and try to learn the area that I live in. And really, I have a goal that I'm trying to meet. And that's whether it is a 5, 10, 15 mile ride that I would go through every morning. I'd love to be able to run, but I am not a runner. I don't love running. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. And so not that I'm able to bike, I try to do it as much as possible and try to cover as much of a distance as I can. And so, but today on my ride, I venture out into an area that I've driven through most of it, but never really stopped or had the foresight to really look at this beautiful trail that's here, this water that's running behind me. But I have a point to make, and I saw this as this river is running, and there are many different areas and different spots, and every spot that you hit has a different tone to it, have a different voice to it. And so the first time I stopped, which was down a bit, it was hard to hear because the noise of the water kind of bouncing off the rocks and everything else that's flowing. Because it was flowing, it would be very hard for me to try to do a video or trying to have a conversation with anybody at that level. So I needed to change and shift my position, shift the environment that I was in, just so that one, I can hear myself pretty well, where I didn't have to compete with the background noise, and you who are our listeners and those of you watching to be able to hear me as well. And so I started thinking along the way, what are some things that we know as believers about Christ? Now, one of the famous stories that we are familiar with is the story of Elijah. Elijah, after having done this great miracle, calling fire from heaven, Mount Megiddo, I think, amazing things happen. He gets scared because this woman said, "I'm going to kill you," and he runs away, and he is in his mood. And he's saying, "God, I am the only one that's left, so go ahead and kill me now, so all your prophets are gone." And God still hears him, but what was happening, I believe, that he lost the ability to hear God among the noise. So he was hearing the Jezebel threaten him. He was hearing the king threaten him. And so all he heard was what was wrong, what was negative. And so he goes into the mountain hiding, and God then have to speak to him. How did God speak to him? Well, tell us there was an earthquake. Well, God wasn't in it. There was fire. God wasn't in it until it was the still, small voice. That's when God spoke to him and encouraged him and said, "Listen, you're not the only one that's left. I have many more who are to rise up still and to be acknowledged. And so get up and eat. Take care of yourself so that you can continue on to work." But I didn't stop there. I started thinking about the New Testament, where many times Jesus would, because of who he was and because of the attraction that he was drawing in, people were always around him. He was always around the crowd, always surrounded by the multitude. And you wondered, did Jesus have any time to rest? Did Jesus have any time to pray? But we know that he prayed. He gets up very early every morning. He would have time with his Father and have these beautiful conversations that we are not necessarily privy to, except in John 17 that we hear his prayer. But ultimately, we find him encouraging his disciples to do the same. I believe there was one time where the disciples were sent out 2 by 2, and they performed miracles. They were super excited. They got back, and they were so ready to tell Jesus about all the exploits and all the things that they had done. And Jesus said, "Hey, come, let's get away." let's get away. Get away from the crowd, get away from the noise so that you can hear me clearly without all the distraction, without all the disturbance that's there. Right now, our world, rightly so, there's a lot of noise that's going on. There's a lot of things that's happening around us that's noise-worthy, right? But oftentimes we lose our voice, or we lose God's voice in the noise, because we are listening to everything else, and we have drowned out, and everything else have drowned out God's voice in our lives. And so until we are able to get away, get to a place where it is still, it is quiet, yeah, there's still movement. There's still things that's happening. If you can see behind me, the waves have not stopped. The water hasn't stopped flowing, but I'm able to hear me. I'm able to hear you. And so I think it is the same thing for us in our relationship with God, and our desire to hear God's voice speaking to us, because God is always speaking, always moving, always acting. And so we got to ask our questions. What is the noise in the background that is keeping me from hearing God's voice? And if it's keeping me from hearing God's voice, do I need to move away from it? Do I need to shut it out for a moment so that I can hear God telling me what I am to do, what I am to think, what I am to act upon? Because this is telling me to do something. Remember, right now, I'm looking at it. It is absolutely beautiful. The water is clear. It's not filthy. There's some filthy spots as we look a little bit lower. But ultimately, the water is beautiful. It is inviting. But that's not my water. It's not the kind of water I want to dive into. Maybe if I was a little bit younger, maybe if I wasn't as germaphobe, not really. But maybe I'll fish in here, and there are, because I saw someone fishing. But that's not the water that's inviting me to jump in. So I have to be able to listen to and knowing the difference between the noise in the background and hearing the whispers of God. And so I hope that you're able to do that, however that you need to do it. I mean, we've been in quarantine, we've been in lockdown for the past almost 4 months now. God is speaking, and God has been speaking. What is it saying to you? I hope you will take some time to listen and hear his voice, and temper yourself so that you are able to distinguish between the background noise and God's ever-present voice. All right? God bless you. Hey, Strasburg family, what an interesting service we had last Sunday. We were Zoom bomb. We experienced some things that we haven't experienced before. And frankly, I was for a moment, I was like, well, what do we do? But I think I appreciate your encouragement to continue your gusto. So I want to encourage you, one, this Sunday, we are going to put the password on our video. Or our Zoom. So we'll make sure, please, when that one call comes, either let it go to voicemail so that you are able to play it back, or be ready to answer it, to write down the information, because we don't want you to miss out. If there are any questions that you may have, I would highly recommend that you try to jump on by 9:30 so that we can work out some of the details, because at some point we may need to lock the meeting so that everybody who's in stays in, and nobody else would be able to get in and do what they want to do. And so I highly recommend and suggest that you would do that. Again, like I said, the information will come to you via one call sometime this week as we plan and get ready for our service here. Hey, I hope that you are doing well, family. I hope that your families are doing well, that there are a lot of exciting things happening in your life, even if it's slow, that you're still navigating through life's journey as it comes. If you are in need of help, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. As a church, we are your family. We want to be present for you and your time of need. I want to really thank all of you for your continuous support and giving to this local body. I am happy to announce that I believe it was in May, April, we were so close to hitting our budget. We were only about $200 and some odd short of hitting our budget. And now, why is this it's such an important big deal? One, we have been dealing in a crisis. Two, we haven't, I wouldn't say never, but since I've been here, we have not been this close to hitting our budgetary goals. And so it was an exciting thing for us to be able to do. For those of you who are considering giving to our tech fund, please continue to do that. You can do it online. One of the options that's there, you can give towards the COVID-19 fund as we continue to accumulate some funds so that once this is over or while we are in the middle of this, that we are able to respond and help people who may be in need, and through some partnership that we will have, we'll build up in the upcoming months. Just a way of really keeping you in tune with what's going on, where we are. I know things are changing this week. The county or PA is supposed to go into the green phase, but I don't know if you've been watching the news or not. Many of the states that have opened up, right now, the report is about 22 of those states have seen a resurgence of COVID-19 incline. Places like Texas, Florida, and 14 other states are seeing a rapid growth, mostly because of the people are being a little bit careless as to the social distancing. The other part is because there are a lot of protests that's happening, and people are not super concerned about that, and so they are engaged in close activity. So we are seeing the COVID-19 rising back up, which was somewhat expected as things were developing, but also we expected that to happen maybe later in this year. So continue to be careful as you travel, as you navigate through life. So as for us as a church, we are still early on in our phase one. Really, that phase one is to upgrade our technology so that we can run church activities and via Zoom, especially on Sunday morning at the church building versus my home right now. But we are in the process of doing that, and hopefully by the end of this month, we'll have some things set in place so that we can move forward with that. So continue to give to both of these funds as well as your regular giving, either via the Tithely or online. So you can go to stroudsburg.church/give, or you can bring your check to the church every Wednesday from 3 to 5. Someone will be there waiting to meet you, or you can drop it off in the mail. Just as a way of understanding, we try to make our deposits once a week. And so if your checks are coming in after the deposits have been made, it will not be cash or check or counted until we come together again, or our finance team come together again to tally all things. So we encourage you to try to bring your funds, or make sure your giving is as regular as possible. Come in via the online aspect or drop off. Trying to get it there by Wednesday so that we can make sure whenever the deposits are done that you are counted, so you don't have to worry about any outstanding checks that may not be allocated properly. So we want to continue to encourage you to check in and love one another, and continue to come gather together and worship. Don't forget the challenge. All right, the challenge that's been sitting out there for a while. Your job and your challenge is to try to invite every week that we come together, that you would invite a couple people with you. We had given you a challenge of inviting 5 people to join us online. And so all the Zoom information you have, and you'll have those to pass on as well. Bible study continues every Wednesday. Prayer time continue every Friday at 12. Bible study at 6, Wednesday night at 6, and prayer time happens at 12 on Friday. So I look forward to seeing you and connecting with you. Hope, again, you are doing well and God is continuing to speak to you, and more importantly, that you are able to hear and listen to God's voice. All right, God bless you. I will see you on the other side.